Do Trump's early voting numbers indicate a victory on Tuesday night? Well, a recent piece on theblaze.com suggests that it could. Here to discuss with us is Blaze senior politics editor Chris Bedford. So, Chris, what do you think? I mean, should we really be reading into these early voting numbers? And can I get some fries with that, Bedford?
Right now, I'm on a busy mission to save the dogs and cats. But after that, extra nuggets, extra fries, extra sauce. Listen, the early the early voting numbers, I think, are generally looking very good for Republicans right now. Women are leading in the vote, which is typically not a great sign for Republicans. The last couple of years has not been. But if you look at the actual polling numbers, the last one that Fox did, for example, in Pennsylvania, showed that 49% of women in the Keystone State were favoring Donald Trump. So it's not necessarily a bad sign. Also, in order to do it, you have to assume there's some kind of three-dimensional chess going on. Maybe it is always, of course, possible. Men need to get out there and vote. Men like Donald Trump more than women do, that's for sure. But more Republicans are registering in all these states. More Republicans are showing up to early voting. So kind of relying on sex as opposed to actual party registration, I would say that is less an indicator of how people are voting this time.
Interesting. And in terms of you voting tonight, I assume this is going to take you through Halloween?
Oh, absolutely.
Excellent.
I'm going to be taking part I'm going to be leading the children's Halloween parade all through our neighborhood, taking candy and giving it away.
We need to send Julio Rosas out to get that. So we see you leading the parade in such fine regalia. So, here we are. The numbers look good. Momentum is there. Is there anything unexpected or anything you're looking at in the next few days? I mean, we're all paying in rapt attention. We're all going over the waterfall together. But is there anything in particular that you look to as a bellwether?
Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Of course, we're going to be waiting on that. I think we're going to have a very good idea of just how long or short the night is going to be based on returns you start to see in Tuesday in Pennsylvania. And the word that thought is not just shared by me. It seems to be shared by somebody or a group of people in the Keystone State who have been getting police officers, for example, to send voters home early. It takes a lot in that state because it's got partisan judges who come up through the ranks, who have to prove their mettle to the party machine, essentially, in order to even get that judgeship. It takes a lot for one of them to say, hold on a second, this is voter suppression that I'm seeing right now. Now you have to change the dates and extend the time people can vote. And we talked about this the other night. That was in Bucks County, a swing county. You're starting to see stories like that pop up all over, not just there, but in other swing states. So there's going to be a lot of fake news out there. There's going to be a lot of conspiracy theories out there. But fortunately, or unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of real stories out there. Wait and watch for those. Which ones are verified? Those are often going to be the troubling spots. And Republicans are actually geared up to fight on those sorts of areas. But it's still actually, by any account, a close race. The vibes, which is what Democrats are relying on, are strongly with the GOP right now. Voter turnout is down dramatically in some of the blue states, blue areas that you'd expect it to be up. It's up dramatically in the red areas that normally don't vote early. But at the same time, the margin is completely within the margin of error. Dan McCarthy had a good piece earlier today where he pointed out the Republicans seem to be acting like they're 6 points ahead in Pennsylvania when they're actually 0.6 points ahead. That ain't going to cut it in an election. That's not enough to rest on your laurels. So who knows what's the weather's going to be like Tuesday? People need to be paying attention. People need to actually be committed. And they need to get out there.
Well, one of the stories that sounds false but is actually true was Joe Biden labeling Trump supporters garbage. We talked about it yesterday on the show, but Chris, in a brilliant media strategy, Trump continued to push in on that and ran a media briefing from a garbage truck. Listen.
How do you like my garbage truck? This truck is in honor of Kamala and Joe Biden.
I mean, you're dressed up right there as the McDonald's Donald Trump. We got Garbage Man Donald Trump last night. What are your thoughts on him?
I know, I've got the wrong costume now. Way behind. I can't keep up with his ability to completely reshape what presidential candidates are able to do. I mean, it was basically political accepted wisdom that politicians should never put on any kind of a costume. The famous one, of course, is Dukakis in a tank, but it goes all the way to Calvin Coolidge looking like a goofball, as awkward as heck, in an Indian headdress back in the day. It never looks good when politicians dress up, but Donald Trump, because he's legitimate and he's comfortable and he's self-deprecating and he makes fun of himself. He had some laugh out loud lines at last night's rally, is actually able to pull it off in a way that I think could reshape future American politics. It's probably going to lead to a lot of extremely cringy moments as other candidates who don't have his abilities are able to or try to dress up the same way. And it kind of goes back to something I noticed about him in 2016. When I first got to the campaign trail, I believed all the hype that this was a billionaire removed from everyday people's concerns. He was a TV star. He was a germaphobe. He wasn't going to be out there holding babies and shaking hands. And the man I saw in New Hampshire and in Iowa was completely the opposite. And it was noticeable the way that other Republicans played fake dress up. So they have Republicans and Democrats have three different costumes they wear. When they're talking to working class voters, they take off their jacket and tie, they roll up their sleeves, and they pretend they're one of them. When they're talking to middle class voters, they put on a jacket and tie. And when they're talking to country club wealthy voters, they take off the tie and the jacket again, and they put on a vest over their shirt. I guess that's a big country club thing. But I saw it over and over again. And no matter where you went, Donald Trump would be wearing his Brioni suit and a trucker hat, hanging out with guys who were wearing Vietnam War hats, hanging out with people at diners, hanging out with billionaires. He got along with any of them. And I think it's probably because he was just more comfortable in his skin than a lot of these other politicians were. He wasn't actually trying to fake. He is a generational political talent, and that allows him to pull this off. And unfortunately, I suspect, or maybe fortunately for the lulz, we are in for 10, 20 years of candidates trying to copy this amazing style.
That I do not look forward to, but but we must enjoy it while we have it. And speaking of which, in the minute we have left with you, we have to talk about what Brian Stelter wrote. Just unbelievable piece in I believe New York Magazine, where he talks about an anonymous TV executive saying these words, which are music to all of our ears. I've been waiting for this moment for so long. Quote, "If half the country has decided that Trump is qualified to be president, that means they're not reading any of this media. And we've lost this audience completely. A Trump victory means mainstream media is dead in its current form." What do we think about this?
I think he's right. And I think Stelter's late to his own funeral. And even for those people who are reading it, like you and me, we all three of us read this stuff all day. We just find it extremely unpersuasive, find it extremely dishonest. I mean, CBS is a company that previously has shown how biased it is, mainly by exclusion. What stories they decide not to cover versus what stories they tend to hype up leads towards their liberal bias. They've taken the mask off and the gloves off. They look like complete and total fools in their headlines, their anchors, their debate coverage. The media is melting down. And Stelter is actually much, much younger than he looks. He's like 38 or something. Is someone who hasn't been around for a huge amount of time. It doesn't seem to have an actual grasp of history, which you'd think you would. There's something to the media having to acknowledge that maybe it's our job to report. Maybe it's our job to let people decide, and that the American people have really never been particularly interested in being told what to think, who to love, who to hate, how to vote. And that this media that feels like it's their job to tell you all these things, well, that's stupid. I mean, that was my takeaway from 2016 when I was writing, I think rather foolishly, about some of my political opinions and telling people this or that. It ends up not actually mattering. And those people who watched what National Review did with its big gold and purple issue against Trump, and they watched what CNN has done, what MSNBC has done, what the New York Times and Washington Post have done, and have not taken away that maybe this isn't the proper role of the media. Maybe there's no power here. Maybe this is stupid and is losing our trust. Well, I don't even know what they've been paying attention to, because the lesson is as clear as day.